All right. So what we're going to do this week is something that's been coming perhaps for a little while. Some people might have it already. Is it the new look Ancestry DNA homepage? So I'm going to share my screen and we will get into it. Okay, please tell me you can see the screen in the right format. Just give me a thumbs up, Angela. You've got your camera on. Can you see it okay? Great, thanks. Okay, so thanks. So because of the way this has been rolling out over the year, some of you might have had this for a while and some of you maybe don't have it yet. I've had parts of it for a while and not parts of it for a while, but I now have it all. So I wanted to wait until I had it all and I could fully, play with it before we talked about it in the group. So a disclaimer here, to protect the anonymity of my DNA matches, this is going to be not demonstrated live. I'm using screenshots. This is all from my own DNA test on Ancestry, which, just to remind you, is an autosomal test, and that's what everybody on Ancestry would have. So there's it's the match page, the home page still looks the same. We've still got our 3 sections as we've had before. And but the origin section has changed a little bit. So we're going to look at that bit first. Now, the official term for all of these type of what percent from what country are you details is admixture. And that's not a phrase you see all the time, but that's the proper scientific term. And for a long time, ethnicity estimate is the main thing people call it. You also see it called ancestry composition. I think that's on 23andMe, and you see it called My Origins on Family Tree DNA. And MyHeritage calls it an ethnicity estimate as well. And they have for a while been promising a new update to that, but mine still has not come. So I will do a session on that when it does finally appear. But this has changed a little bit recently on the Ancestry website. And the big change, I think, is just in nomenclature. So they are now calling it ancestral regions and not an ethnicity estimate. And I think actually that ancestral regions is a much better name for it, because ethnicity estimate, it's vague, and this ancestral regions, it gives you the sense of that this is not recent, that it's in the deep past. And that's what really this shows us. And I just want to remind you how they come up with this. So they take people from places. So they might say, we've got these 50 people and they are from Cork in Ireland. Probably 50 is too big an estimate. 5 people from Cork in Ireland, and their ancestors all came from Cork for multiple generations. So therefore their DNA is representative of what Cork DNA looks like. And they do that for many, many, many regions in the world. I think they have several hundred regions that they do that for. And they update that periodically. They get more people, they refine it. And so that's why you see this change over time. So this is my current one. And you'll notice here, it says updated September 2023. Now they have said that there is a new version of this coming very soon, and mine hasn't come yet. So what I would advise, if you have an Ancestry DNA test, is to go on and take a quick screenshot of what it looks like at the moment, because it's sure going to change. And I like to be able to compare them. So I have a big file of lots of different changes in each company's revisions to these. And I like to be able to compare them across time. So these percentages for me are broadly accurate. So scientifically, we would say this type of test is always going to tell you accurately what continent your deep ancestry comes from. But of course, that's not very specific. When it gets down to the more granular level, there's more scope for it being wrong. And wrong is perhaps too strong a word. It might be not precise. So when I say mine is broadly correct, most of my ancestry that I can trace comes from Ireland. So yay, that's good, 91% Ireland. And then it says 4% Wales, 3% Sweden and Denmark, and 2% Scotland. And this would not be an unusual breakdown for someone who has ancestry from the British Isles, as we would call them geographically. I do have a great great grandmother who was Welsh. And so if everything broke down accurately, dividing her back in time, I would have about 6.25% of her DNA. But as we know, each new person is a random combination of 50% of each of their parents. So you don't definitely get 25% from each grandparent, and you don't definitely get 12.5% from each of your 8 great grandparents, and so on. So 4% Wales, that it's a very small percentage, but I do know that I should have some Welsh DNA, and it appears that I do. This 3% Sweden and Denmark, complete nonsense. I have no Scandinavian ancestry whatsoever. I can go back to, I know most of the names of my 3 times great grandparents. I'm missing 4 of them. And then on the next generation, I know about a third of the names. There's no Scandinavian ancestry in that time frame. And that's the time frame when you would expect to be having DNA come through. So you get about six generations or so. So that's not right. I don't have any. Now, you might go, what about Vikings? And yes, certainly there were Vikings in Ireland, and they would have come from the Scandinavian regions. Vikings were not necessarily a nationality, though. It was more like their job. So it's too far back in time for most people to have anything that looks like it would come from them. And the 2% Scottish, you might go, well, that must be nonsense, because you just said the 3% is Sweden and Denmark is nonsense. But actually, I do have a 3 times great grandfather from Scotland. So again, that's about 3% of my DNA. So maybe that 2% does come from him, but can't say for sure. But what you want when you look at this is for it to just be broadly right. So if you go in there and you see 25% Ashkenazi Jewish, and you don't have a Jewish grandparent, well, then you need to reconsider. You need to go, hang on, something is up here. If it's a very small amount, under 5 to 10%, don't be panicking about it. That doesn't mean suddenly that you have an Italian grandfather or something like that. So you want it to be broadly what you're expecting it to be, unless of course you don't know what your ancestry is, and then of course it's all to play for. But I mean, I did work with a man who believed his father was Irish. There was a very sad story, and he believed his father was Irish. And when he came to me, the first thing I did was just take a quick look at his ancestral regions, and he didn't have any Irish at all, but he did have 47% Wales. And I said, don't think your dad's Irish. I think your dad's going to be Welsh. But, that's just based on this analysis very quickly. And then, of course, we started to work over time on his DNA matches, which is a real important part. And we found that there was a massive proportion of them on the father's side that came from Wrexham in Wales. So in the end, we did in fact discover that his father was from Wales and not Ireland. So, that did give us a clue to what we should be looking for. But you don't want to be too important. Don't be too focused on it. When you get it to the next level, and this is where they've changed it recently in Ancestry, we now have these journeys, ancestral journeys. And this is breaking down where your ancestors likely lived and moved in the past 300 years. And for me, it gives these 2 regions. It's basically the bottom half of Ireland. And it's saying, South Leinster, East Central Leinster, South Leinster coast. So this is Leinster here in Ireland. And it's basically saying all along here. And then this 36, these numbers, that might confuse you. That's actually coming from your own tree, where you have put in a place in your tree. And so for me, I have a lot of ancestors who came from Dublin, which is hidden under this 36 on this map of Ireland. And I tend not to write in their specific location in Dublin when I'm putting it on Ancestry. I don't have time to be putting in very detailed, So if they came from Dublin City, I just put Dublin. If they come from somewhere else, I'll say somewhere else. Here, for example, I have some ancestors who came from Carlow, and it is noting that they are from Carlow there. And that would be the East Central Leinster that they're focusing on there. Now, I do have ancestors who came from Dublin, Wicklow, Wexford, and Carlow. So it is broadly correct in saying that I must have ancestry from there. And then when it comes to Munster, it's used more geographical terms. Like these nobody would ever say, oh, I'm from South Leinster in Ireland. They would say I'm from Wicklow or Waterford or Wexford or something like that. But here they've gone, okay, Clare and East Clare and South Galway, which is really Limerick is what they're talking about there. And I do indeed have ancestors from Clare and Limerick. So it's picking out things like that. Again, don't be too fussed about this. I actually think that this system is probably gameable. If enough people said that they were from the moon, eventually Ancestry would come up with an ancestral journey that was the moon, I think. I kind of want to have a social experiment about that. So when I zoom into those places, it does tell me which parent passed on that section. And from what I checked, it was accurate. Each one I checked was like, yep, that is the right parent that gave me that right part of that DNA. So this is getting more accurate than it used to be. And then it gives us this I quite like. It gives us the ancestral regions that we saw at the start, and you can compare them to some of your DNA matches. Multiple of your DNA matches. I've just chosen one at random here. And this could be a clue to if you don't know what part of your family tree someone comes from. And maybe Ancestry has already said, oh, this is your paternal side or your maternal side. So you've narrowed it down by half, but you're still not sure where. This could be a clue. So I just chose this particular match at random. And it shows me this person does have a significant amount of Irish ancestry, but they have a lot more UK ancestry. So you've got 7% Wales, 9% Sweden and Denmark, 18% Scotland, and 23% England and Northwestern Europe. And you can see I've got very little of those or none and this. So that might be a clue to me that I want to focus on the parts of my ancestry that have more British Isles, or Britain in it. So I have, as I mentioned, the Welsh great-great-grandmother. I have a Scottish 3 times great-grandfather, and I also have an English great-great-grandfather unrelated to the Welsh person. He doesn't show up in this makeup at all. But it might suggest that this person, were I to investigate them, came from that line or the Welsh line or the Scottish line just based on this. Now, that's not to say that it's correct, but it's just a hint to put you in the right direction. So let's get on now to the new match page. And again, I've blocked out everyone's details for anonymity. A few things here to note that are very nice. Now, you'll have seen this already. They have the new, they're squares instead of dots for the groups that you can assign. And yes, I have one here. So now on your main match page, you can now click in to add relationships, add or edit groups, add or edit notes. So instead of having to click into the DNA match, you can do that from this page, which is a great time saver. And when you press on one of these, you can also add multiple people at the same time. So here then, you also see when you have the new squares with it puts the first letter of the name of the group into the square. So if you are in the habit of going, oh, paternal cluster 1, paternal cluster 2, that's going to be unhelpful because it's just going to have P in every square. I'm actually not a huge fan of them having the thing. It's still, if you hover over it in the live version, it still comes up with it, obviously. But I think particularly in Ireland, where we would have a lot of names that begin with Mac, having M, I'm not necessarily going to remember what color I've assigned to what cluster. So I don't love that. Maybe you do like it. I don't know. I also have mystery groups. And when I have mystery clusters, I call them mystery paternal cluster 1, mystery paternal cluster 2, and so on. So they come up with M in the square as well. So maybe I need to think about renaming my cluster groups in a different way. But there's lots that you can do on this page now, where before you had to go click in individual matches, which is really nice time saving. One thing to say here is, yeah, so here this is new person who's a new match, and I'm exploring this new match. In this case, I do know who this person is already. They've tested for me, so it wasn't a surprise match. But when I then went to add them into the relevant groups, I pressed on the little edit add groups. And up comes on the right hand side my list of matches, my list of groups, sorry. And you can see here it's telling you a few additional pieces of information. So again, we've got the color, we've got the name, obviously I've blanked it out, and it has in little gray square there, or oval shape, a number, and that'll be the number of people in this group already in your DNA match list, which is nice. You can see what you're adding to. And then when you can plus any of these or minus any of these from here. And you see how when I've clicked into this, the little ticky boxes have come up on everybody there on that page. So I can do a quick add of lots of people at once. Or if I've figured out that the mystery paternal cluster 2 is now called the Murphy cluster, I can change that here by clicking on the little pencil symbol, edit it, and add whoever I like. Now, one thing to say here is you have to be careful to save this at the bottom. There's a save button. I have accidentally clicked out of it and not saved, and then I have to go and redo it again. So just make sure that you do click save when you're doing that. I think it's easy to miss that, and it's bitten me several times. Now, all of these changes, when you go to the, oh yeah, I put it in here actually, that's nice. So I'm saving a new group called Riley. It gives you the number of colors. Now, I still don't have, they are saying that there's going to be more colors to go with. I still don't have the more colors. So maybe other people do. I would never, I mean, why would you ever pick a black square? I wonder, does it, if you put the black square, does it put the color of the letter in a different color? Hopefully. I must test that out. So again, don't forget to save when you're in this section so that it doesn't go wrong. Now on the main match page at the top right, we now have the filters, and they're hidden. They used to be in a long line across the top, and now they're all under this filter. When you press filter, I had to do it in a couple of screens. So the first bit of it is filter DNA matches by unviewed matches. So those are the ones you haven't looked at before, and they have that little dot beside them. People who've got a common ancestor. So if we go back, there's a common ancestor symbol. And there's a green dot for haven't seen this person before. If you've got notes written down, and then hidden matches. Now, I don't know, I really don't know why you would hide matches at all. I'd love to chat about that with people. What do you use it for? And so you can filter by those things there. And this is one I use quite often when I'm checking somebody whose test I manage, and maybe there's been a new they've said, oh, I've got some new matches. I will always just take a look at this. Now, it's not always going to be right, of course, but it'll be someone whose tree has matched in their algorithm with your tree. So you want to take a look at anybody in this common ancestor category on a, maybe every couple of months, and just see, oh, hang on, do I know this person? Oh, I do know who that is, and so on. And then, so as well as filtering by these main categories, you can also filter by trees, shared DNA groups, and parental sites. So I've got those here for you. So trees, you can say, show me everybody with trees, show me everybody with public linked trees, show me with unlinked trees, and private trees. Now, private linked trees, obviously, we hate those because we can't see what's in them, but at least useful to know. So you could say, I don't have time today to work on people where I have to click into them and find that they have a tree that says private and has 4 private people in it. That's a waste of my time. So you can filter by these things. And then you can also filter by the DNA. Now, this was there before. It just looks slightly different than it did previously. But I do like it. It's nice and clear now. That's exactly how many DNA matches I had this week when I did the screenshots. And close matches, fourth cousins or closer. I am betting that the Americans and Canadians in our group are going to have a much larger number than me. And maybe we'll do a little poll about that at some point. Europeans from the British Isles, this is a high number to have. So when we talk about doing the Leeds method, and you're aiming to use people between 90 and 400 centimorgans, I have hardly anybody in that category that I don't know who they are already, because it just, there's so many more people who've tested in North America than in Ireland and the UK that we're going to have way more in this group. I've seen, 1,200, 1,500. Then I got the distant matches. And then if you want to filter it by a particular range, so again, if you were going to do the Leeds method here, you could say, show me a minimum of 90, a maximum of 400, off you go. And then you could copy that into an Excel doc. We might do a class on the Leeds method at one point and see how people like it. And then the last section is the groups section. So you can filter it by all matches, custom labeled maternal, custom labeled paternal, custom labeled both sides. So these are ones where you have labeled them yourself. So it's not that Ancestry has broken it down by their side view technology. This is one where you've gone and said, I know who this person is, and they are my dad's paternal second cousin or whatever. And then if you've got the DNA Plus, which is the subscription that you get if you don't have an Ancestry subscription, but you want the DNA stuff, you can see it this way. So you get the side view breakdown. Now, if you have a subscription to Ancestry already, this doesn't matter because you get that automatically. And the unassigned category, you always want to take a look at that unassigned category again, like the common ancestor one, because there will be people that it won't be able to figure out which side, but they could still be important matches. And again, in the British Isles, we would have loads of people in the unassigned category. My matches are broken down in roughly thirds. So I have roughly 1/3 of my are unassigned because it just can't determine it from the DNA. And that's because smaller populations, fewer people have tested and so on. So let's talk then about some cons, because, you know, I don't want to be totally positive about everything. Here's some things I don't like about it. It's a smaller font than it used to be. And given that the demographic of people who use Ancestry's website is a little bit older, I think a smaller font might irritate some people. Now, of course, you can make your browser window zoom up. That's easy to do, but I feel it's a slightly retrograde step. And even with my incredibly youthful eyes, I would like to see it be a little bit bigger than it is as a standard, or have a way to adjust it myself on the site. The other thing I don't like is the match pages instead of it scrolling. So it used to be that you just were able to scroll forever on your match list and you get, you know, it would just eventually show you everything if you had hours and hours to look at it. They have now gone to match pages with 20 matches per page, and it's telling me that there is a daunting one of 884 pages. You can also change that from that 20 to 50 per page. So the reason I think they've probably done this is to prevent scraping by third-party tools, similar to how when you look at MyHeritage, you only see 10 matches by default, and then you can increase that to 25 or 50, I think. And then the same when you look at the shared matches pages, and it's now the same on Ancestry, you now get them in pages of 20. Now, you might not have more than 20 shared matches with an individual. On MyHeritage, they give you 10 per page, so you have to click a lot of times to get everybody. And it doesn't tell you how many matches in common total there are with another person. I'd like them to say, okay, you've got 300 matches in common with this person. So I know, okay, that's a lot of pages to click through. And as I already mentioned, it's easy to not save by mistake on these tools. I think I'd like to see an auto-save function in there as well. And my last complaint is there's a lot of clicks to get back to the main match page now. I find that it's very easy to go off into another person's, you can go from one match page to another match page to another match page, and then you're like, oh, I'm done with this section, and then you have 12 clicks to get back to the original homepage. So I'd like that to be easier to get back to. What do other people think? I just put up my contact details as always at the end for a second, but I'm going to stop sharing the screen now, and we can have a bit of a chat about it if anyone would like to give me their opinion. How have people found this so far? Have they been using it? What do you like about it? Don't all speak at once. Why?
I really like, well, for me, because I have a lot of endogamy in my family, showing how much the new tools matches other people in my tree has been a lifesaver,
Yeah.
because now I can see what branch people are on. And I actually found a sibling of my great grandfather's by figuring out that these people are this branch, and but like I had some people on Ancestry who I knew were my mother's first cousin's kids. And then by figuring out how much we all shared, I found a whole other branch. And I was able to do research on this person's tree, and I found the sibling of my
Fantastic.
great grandfather.
Amazing. Of course, you had to have the Pro Tools subscription to see
Mhm.
that. And I do have another video that we did earlier on in the year. If you haven't seen that, I'm
Mhm.
probably going to do another Pro Tools video later on in the new year because they are refining it, and I did that one in the first few weeks of it. But yeah, I mean, the Pro Tools is an absolutely amazing new component of Ancestry. And yes, it does mean that everyone is spending an extra 100, for me it's another €120 a year, but it is absolutely worth the money.
Yeah,
um
I had
Everyone is seeing this new match page whether they
I
have Pro
I
Tools or not.
got it. I got it on sale. They were running a sale and I got it. Like they gave a freebie and then a better price. But
Ah,
also Ancestry, if you call them or chat with them, they will give you a better price.
they will, they
I've
definitely will.
never paid the full price. They've been, it's not something I've had to like beg for. I've just said, do you have any specials? And they've been really nice.
Mm.
So for me, the Pro Tools have been really worth it.
Oh, it's so worth it. And as a professional, I'm always going to have it now. I'm never, unless I feel like I'm, going to be in hospital for a month and not working, I'm going to have the Pro Tools all the time because it's just so valuable. Has anyone else not got the new match page yet? Is anyone still seeing the old version, or has everyone got it? No? Okay. Has anyone had any problems with it? Any observations that things you do or don't like? Kathy?
I was going to say, I don't like the how you select if you want to refine the matches you want to view. It just
Yeah, the
seems to take
filtering.
so much longer, the filtering. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked the little drop down arrows before that they had, but I guess they feel it looks tidier or something that it's hidden behind, Yeah, I mean, one thing to point out about all of these things is that there is a feedback button, and you can send them your feedback, and I am not shy about coming forward with things like that. I'm going to tell them I don't like this or that I don't or do like this. Be positive too. The praise sandwich. I really like this, but this thing sucks. But I really like this as well. Because they do, it sounds trite. Oh, your feedback's important to us, but they do. If enough people say, I do like this thing or I don't like this thing, well then they might act on it. I mean, it doesn't mean that if enough people go, can we have the chromosome browser, that they'll give it. They're definitely never going to give that because they've said it a million times that they're never going to give that. But small things about the user engagement, the interface, I do think those things are up for amendment, particularly when they've just launched a new version. They want everyone to like it. They don't want to be in a scenario where people are saying, oh, that's just not as good as it used to be. I'm not using it as much, because they want to keep you on the site as long as possible. That's, of course, their goal. Anyone else got any other comments or queries? No? Okay. Well, we will leave it there for today. I'm going to turn off the recording now. Don't forget that if you're not taking our courses, you can go to our website, genealogicalstudies.com, and have a look at what we've got. We've just launched the Latin for genealogists, which people are loving.